So the Bray-Butters-Kelly indexes are a set of indexes that are really designed to help us better measure the health of the U.S. economy through the lens of a high-frequency measure of real GDP growth, the broadest measure that we have of the overall health of the economy. So what we're doing is we're taking 500 different data series, sort of the universe of activity indicators that we have available to us, combining that with GDP growth to boil it down to one number, to give us a sense of where growth is relative to its longer run trend, and then kind of getting a sense of how we can read that number, what it's telling us about the health of the expansion, or whether we might be facing a contraction or recession in the near term. The BBK Coincident Index, which is one of these new indices that we're producing, is actually very similar in spirit to our National Activity Index, just uses a much broader data set. And because this new index is going to come out later in the month, it's going to be sort of like a final read on the U.S. economic data, either confirming or offering a little bit more information than our National Activity Index. One of the other indices that we're producing that makes this a little bit unique from our National Activity Index is something called the BBK Leading Index. This index is actually looking in more of a forward-looking sense and is trying to give us a sense of where growth is heading over the next 8 months. The other indices that are out there, something like our Chicago Fed National Activity Index or the Coincident and Leading Economic Indexes produced by the Conference Board, tend to focus on selected subsets of indicators. For these sets of indices, we're using the broadest universe of data that we can possibly use. And that's made possible by the incorporation of some new statistical techniques that we haven't tried in the past. You can kind of get a sense of what's driving GDP growth at the moment by breaking it down with this model into different components. The way we view these components is that some have more permanent effects on growth and some have more transitory or temporary effects on growth. Those very long-run movements are part of what we estimate as the trend component. And all of our indices are measured relative to this trend component. So when we talk about the Coincident Index or the BBK Leading Index, we're talking about growth relative to trend. The cycle component is really those two indices. We're kind of capturing the business cycle component of GDP growth. And then what's left over we refer to as the irregular component. It tends to be more temporary factors driving growth. So when you use these data series and when you look at our decomposition, you can kind of get a sense of what the current drivers of GDP growth have been and make some inference as to what they might be in the next quarter.